Along the Texas coast, big wet storms are nothing new, but this one scares even those who have lived their whole lives near the spray of the sea, the worst storm Texas has seen in almost 50 years.
The more I watch of it, I'm just not going to take that chance.
Hurricane Harvey is expected to bring tree-snapping 200-kilometer-an-hour plus winds and storm surge as tall as a giraffe.
Texas is about to have a very significant disaster.
A slow-moving disaster. The storm is expected to move inland and just hang out there for up to 5 days, dumping as much as 90 centimeters of rain. And so, residents have either stocked up, boarded up, or hit the road. Some are being bused to shelters like this one in San Antonio, a city which itself may be hit by Harvey tomorrow. Authorities in Texas say some areas may be uninhabitable for days or weeks. However, in Corpus Christi, one of the first cities in the hurricane's path, no mandatory evacuation.
I've gone through a lot of hurricanes. I've lived here most of my life, and I'd rather take care of my home and my animals and be safe here.
Others say they'd leave if they could.
Financially, we don't have the money to go ahead and take that ride out of town.
For many Texans, the amount of rain forecast sparks memories of 2001's Tropical Storm Allison, a storm that hovered over Texas for days and killed more than 20 people.
We are going to be dealing with immense, really record-setting flooding in multiple regions across the state of Texas.
Winds of up to 130 miles per hour have battered the Texas coast as the fiercest storm in over a decade lashes the U.S. mainland, threatening devastating flooding. Hurricane Harvey reached land northeast of Corpus Christi at around 10 p.m. local time, 4 a.m. BST, after thousands of people fled their homes on the Gulf Coast to escape the Category 4 storm. Texas Governor Greg Abbott had warned the monster weather system would trigger a very major disaster and drew fearful comparisons to Hurricane Katrina, one of the deadliest to ever strike the U.S. Harvey is expected to move slowly over the Texas and Louisiana coast for days, with forecasters predicting sea level surges of up to 13 feet, 4 meters, and more than 3 feet, 90 centimeters, of rain. The town of Rockport appeared to be one of the hardest hit, hours after its mayor told anyone who chose not to evacuate to write their names on their arms for identification in case of death or injury. A high school, a hotel, an elderly housing complex and other buildings suffered structural damage. According to emergency services and local media, some were being used as shelters. As many as 6 million people are believed to be in Harvey's path, as are oil refineries, chemical plants and the dangerously flood-prone Houston, the nation's fourth-largest city. The storm's impact on refineries has already pushed up gasoline prices while the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency lifted some rules on gasoline to reduce shortages. Donald Trump, facing the first large-scale natural disaster of his presidency, said on Twitter he had signed a disaster proclamation which unleashes the full force of government help shortly before Harvey made landfall. As a Category 4 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale, Harvey could uproot trees, destroy homes and disrupt utilities for days. It is the first major hurricane, of Category 3 or more, to hit the mainland U.S. since Wilma struck Florida in 2005. Harvey's size and strength also dredged up memories of Katrina, the 2005 hurricane that made a direct hit on New Orleans as a Category 3 storm, causing levees and flood walls to fail in dozens of places. About 1,800 died in the disaster made worse by a slow government emergency response. Petrol stations on the South Texas coast were running out of fuel as residents fled the region. U.S. gas prices spiked as the storm shut down 22% of Gulf of Mexico oil production. According to the U.S. government, more than 45% of the country's refining capacity is along the Gulf Coast, and nearly a fifth of the nation's crude oil is produced offshore. Ports from Corpus Christi to Texas City were closed to incoming vessels and Shell, Anadarko, ExxonMobil and others have evacuated staff from offshore oil and gas platforms.
Today, Abbott asked President Trump to declare it a major disaster even before the hurricane hit, a lesson learned from Katrina. For Trump, this will be his first natural disaster as president.
Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job.
He was warned to avoid making the mistake George W. Bush did in his response to Katrina. Federal support was too little and too late.
Thank you very much.
Trump left to spend the weekend at Camp David, but the White House says he's monitoring the situation.
This is right up President Trump's alley. Not only has he showed leadership here, but his entire focus has been on making America great again.
To those who plan to ride it out, a stern warning from the Red Cross.
The storm could change, and as they've said, they're not going to come rescue you once it gets bad.
Officials say for many who thought about leaving but haven't, now it may be too late.